Good morning. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Business Boardcast. I'm Nikki Larkin. Today I am presenting regarding finance teams. So if you haven't seen this before, we are live. We are very happy to take questions as we go along. So please do say hi in the comments. It's good to know that it's definitely working as well. But welcome to you. Thank you for the regulars, and welcome to you if you're new to the Business Broadcast. So often we have guests on the show to discuss various topics. However, today's topic is something that I have quite a lot of experience on. So I'm flying solo today. So today's topic is how your finance team can help your business grow. Now, the reason why I chose this topic, there's multiple reasons why, but it's very clear to see in some businesses how a great finance team can really impact on the growth of the business. Now, the reason why, which I'm going to go through, do stay right to the end because I've got some really good tips of what it should really look like, which you can take away at the end. But the key thing is I've talked to business owners, in every day, in and out, and I see lots of different finance teams. We provide services under Boardcast Accountants of finance teams, and I've worked in finance teams. I've worked out this morning 34 years, the first time I worked in finance team. So I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, what I want to show today is how we can use the best practice to make sure that your finance team is really integral to the business, and that it is an asset, not an overhead. So you see, unfortunately, some business owners just think of their finance team as, the bookkeepers. They just add things up. A really great finance team is so much more than that. So we're going to start. I've got various different sections I'm going to go through today, but I'm going to talk about what is the purpose of the finance team, because you may be thinking, my finance team does one or two of these things, but might not have really realised the breadth of what your finance team can provide. Now, bear in mind that if you have qualified accountants in your finance team, those people will have had, many of them will have probably done a whole degree, sometimes relevant, business studies or accounting finance, but they'll have done 3 or 4 years of study at university. They'll have also done at least 2 to 3 years of exams, and potentially even longer than that, depending on what route they've got to get to chartered accountant. So if you've got chartered accountants, chartered certified accountants, chartered management accountants in your team, they have got huge pockets of information and experience and knowledge that you really do need to be capitalizing on. They shouldn't just be there to add up the invoices. So starting off with the purpose of the team. So there's multiple purposes that the finance team could or should be providing. So starting from the top, so they absolute basics is they should be providing accurate figures for your business so that you'll have good management information, also timely management information. It's no good it being 100% perfect, but you don't get it till 3 months later. You need that really regularly. I was trained in American teams, and definitely no patience there. So, second, third day of the new month, the previous month's information has to be available, which was great basis of training, and it's really important. So they should be providing you with brilliant management information so that you can make decisions upon your business. You can review how your business has been doing and also be looking forward to the future. Another thing, they should be providing compliance for the business, and this is a really serious point because, along with so many other things, you don't want to be in trouble because your business hasn't been compliant. So, even yesterday, there's now talk about certain things to do with finances that could become even criminal offences. So, and they already are in certain ways. So, you've got to be super careful. You want to make sure you want to be able to sleep at night knowing that the relevant bills have been paid and taxman's happy, and nothing has been done that's not appropriate for your business. So compliance is sometimes it's almost like as an afterthought, just sort of expected, but actually there's really serious consequences if those figures are not correct. The bit that I always get excited about is the forecasting, budgeting, planning, because that's the part that I have spent a lot of my career in. Now, I'll go a bit in further I've got a section all about skills in a little bit. And I'll go in a bit more detail about the differences. But a good finance team, and that's not to say an individual, because it's really hard to get all of these different things within just one individual because everybody's got different skill sets. But a really good finance team will be very proactive in the forecasting, updating forecasts regularly. They will be integral to the budget cycle, and they should have a really strong impact to the business planning process. So that's really, so you really need to have them involved. And I will also be talking about in a little while about how you do that. The other key thing, which is something that's missed sometimes, but I've certainly always seen it in the large teams and really good businesses, is taking on the risk management function as well. Now, sometimes that can be shared across multiple areas, but there are clear areas where the finance team can really contribute to that risk management, and also doing risk scenarios, and really helping you out there. Finally, and this is definitely not last but not least, is financing and funding. Now, what's really important is try to get ahead of the curve here. You don't want to be having to sorting out financing and funding at the last minute. Now, don't get me wrong, it happens to all of us at some point. There's always some project that gets delayed or some big client bill that gets delayed for some whatever reason, and you're having to scramble together and work out contingency. So, it does happen, but the good finance team will hopefully have some buffers in place. They'll also be looking quite far ahead, and can be sorting out the financing and funding. That's been very difficult for some teams in the last 3 years because there's been so many different external factors. However, look, it's a fresh start, 2023. If you haven't had that in place now start planning. At what point are you going to need additional financing or funding? Get that in place as early as possible, because trust me, it's much easier to borrow when you don't need it compared to where you do need it. I've seen so many times, and this is something I've done myself as well. So, hands up, sometimes you don't need the financing. So you think, oh, well, why do I want to pay the interest or the fee for a finance facility? Because obviously you're trying to improve your profit and keep your profit as good as possible. However, when you actually need it, it's sometimes harder to get it. So sometimes you do have to just accept it's best to have some sort of rolling facility, some access to some sort of pot, so that when the unexpected happens, it's not so unexpected because you've got a contingency plan. But also, thinking positively, there's some very exciting growth projects that I've been seeing. I've got clients that are building, big factories. are doing huge international expansions, all sorts of very exciting things. And those definitely really need to look at getting your finances. It's not, you need to have a lot of detail and background and things for those. So you do need to have some people that are really experienced at that and really good at identifying the best sources of financing or funding for you, whether it is debt or equity funding. Okay, so I think hopefully just from that list in my first section, a finance team can be so much more than just the bookkeeping. So and that's only just first things to look at. Oh, good point that Nigel's made. Do like a realistic forecast and budget, just essential to help guide a business and helps being proactive with your business plan and visibility. Absolutely concur, Nigel. In fact, we're accountants, Greenwich accountants this year have actually decided to use a different methodology this year. We're doing a base budget, which is where we're looking at, it's almost the same sort of figures, so it's just the same as always, but with the current costs, and then having a stretch target. So rather than just really going for stretch target and perhaps taking on people too early and everything, we're going for quite a prudent but hopefully successful approach of going for a base and stretch budget. But today's session is not all about the detail of forecasting and budgeting. As you know, I can talk for hours just on that one little topic. Okay, so the next area that I wanted to go through, and you may not be thinking, team culture, why on earth do you want to talk about team culture? So many reasons. So it is the difference between a good and a bad team, whether they've got the right culture. So there's things to foster a really good team culture for your finance team. And some of these are applicable to other teams in the business as well. It's not, but I'm, obviously thinking today about how finance teams are treated, etc., and how to get the best out of them. One thing is encourage great communication. Now, a lot of accountants are introverts, so sometimes it can be a bit of an effort, but you have to foster communication in lots of different ways, have lots of different channels of communication open, whether it's having an open door policy, whether it's having some particular forum where people can share their thoughts, whether it's lots of different one-to-ones, team meetings, all sorts. There's so many things again, communication is a whole section on its own, could be, but encouraging that great communication helps the team members to feel part of the process, part of the business, part of the finance team. But the key thing here is part of the wider business. Really important. Finance shouldn't be just shut off in a little corner on its own, with the cobwebs churning out the sales invoices. They are integral. If you want them to be positive for your business, they are an integral part of your business, and you need to therefore treat them accordingly. So encouraging great communication, including them in all different parts of the business, whether it's so involving them. I talk a bit about this in the best practice bit, but involving them in the process. They need to be in the process of budgeting from day one. They're not there just to put the spreadsheets together. They've got some great experience and knowledge that need to be involved in that from day one, and therefore being part of different cross department teams really helps, and it gives them, makes them feel part of it, makes them, confident as to be able to contribute. Another thing that's which I know has been very successful in a lot of businesses is having open communication channels for improvements, because even the best teams, there is still always something. There's always incremental improvements that can be made. So make sure that there are good communication channels for that, and that those improvements are considered seriously. I say I've been doing this 34 years. I make mistakes sometimes. I need my team to say, Nikki, you're doing too much, go and do something else. We'll do it, and we'll probably do it better, or it could be, there's actually a more modern way to do it, or a better way, a quicker way, a more accurate way, a more profitable way. There's lots of, as you bring in more and more different people, you're going to get more ideas. And you need to make sure that you've got that open communication channels, and also a way for them to be able to say, yes, actually, that process is just pants. You could be doing it so much better. You could be using this bit of software or this app, whatever it might be. There should, really should be no sacred cows. Listen. Do really listen to your team members. Sorry, bad nails today, need to be redone. So do listen to your team. There's not, even if that suggestion doesn't get implemented, make sure that your team member that has put it forward and appreciates they have been listened to, and explain why actually no, it's actually used in a different way, or we're going to do it this other way, but explain why. Speak to them. There's, I think there's nothing sadder than if you go into, an accountancy firm or a finance department and the place is silent, because that means there's no communication. Okay, they might be communicating with themselves in teams or something like that, but quite honestly, they're more, they're not on the phone to the client. They're not on Teams to the client. They're not talking amongst themselves, discussing things. You need to have that communication. You need to have them to be able to speak. Also, make sure they're not afraid of identifying errors, whether it's their own or someone else's. And that might not just be, it might not be complete that, something's completely posted wrong or whatever else. But, what you want to be able to say is, thank you for letting me know. How can we make sure that doesn't happen again? What can we do differently? There's lots of different things. And sometimes, and I'm going to go into this a bit detailed in a moment. Sometimes these things happen because the finance team is being overworked. Too much pressure is being put on them, and then errors happen. So sometimes you do have to slow down. So I'm just going to go into that. But my next section is going into the mix of skills. But I do want to raise this issue. Burnout. There's been so many challenges for finance teams over the last few years. There's been Brexit. Now, Brexit has meant a huge amount of changes for finance teams to get their heads around, whether it's different import duties or different processes, different, having to rechange their budgets because of changes from just in time to longer lead cycles and procurement, all sorts of things. But it has caused your finance team a lot more work. Also, the pandemic has caused, a lot more, a lot of stress for people. So do really, really keep your eye out for your finance team, whether they are burnt out or about to suffer from burnout. Now, that's a whole nother subject, and I will get in an expert to talk about that in a few weeks. But practical things that you can do now, and it's something that I've been doing, is rather than giving people too wide an area and therefore feeling really overwhelmed by just thinking, oh my God, this is just a never ending amount of work to get much more specific in their responsibilities, and also really try to package up their pieces of work a bit smaller. So rather than say, right, you've got these 30 different things that you've got to fit in this month, try and break them down a bit, because I know certainly with some of my team members that they can, if they have too big a list, it can then just overwhelm them and slow them down. So by giving them just a few, they end up still getting all 30 done, but they're just their mind is less cluttered from thinking about all the other things on the 30 on the list. And so just breaking them down a bit more. And that can be applied to obviously other areas as well. The other big thing that has changed with finance departments, and I probably some ways hadn't noticed it quite so much because of my background's in tech firms, so there was always lots of fast communication things. But in accountancy practice and in some other finance teams as well, in-house ones, the demand for things being turned around quickly and the volume of information request, again, can just be too overwhelming. So, for example, it's difficult, but if you have clear expectations, if you've got something that's going to be delivered on the 15th of the month, that's fine. You can check to make sure that they're okay. If they've got the information, can they make sure they deliver? But just keep reminding them or asking questions. You have to decide yourself. But I know that's where some of our team members in the past have got too overwhelmed. You'd end up spending more time communicating back on giving status reports than just getting on and actually doing the work. So make sure you do give your team the space to actually just do their work, which I know can be difficult. And people are being now, overwhelmed by messages, whether it's on the phone, on Teams, on WhatsApp, on your email, just so much. So do encourage your teams to have all of that switched off for a certain point of the day so that they can really get on with just moving on from that. So my next area, so I went sort of sidetrack on the skills, on the culture going into the burnout, but I think it's such an important topic and it's things that I'm really seeing a lot of. You've got to really get hold of that so that you can get your teams, get them to work optimally. The next section is mix of skills. Now, if you remember when we went through the purpose of the team and all the different things that they provide for you, it's damn tight impossible to get all of those top skills from one person. So you have to make sure that you have a mix of people. And that doesn't mean as well that you have carbon copies of the same person. And that's something that does go wrong on finance teams, where you get the one person doing all the recruitment and they're just hiring people just like them. You need to have a mix of skills so that you can get the best out of them, because the mindset for forecasting and budgeting and scenario planning is very different to the mindset that you have for really accurate, detailed compliance type staff, items of work to do. So you really do need to look at making sure that you've got a nice balance. You can get really good profiling of teams of your different characteristics and things, and make sure that you've got a complementary mix. Not people that are going to necessarily, really clash. You want them to be able to work together and be a really great team, but you do have to have a mix. You can't just say, okay, right, we're growing, so I need somebody, I need another Alicia. Yeah, Alicia's fabulous, but you need complementary skills around. You need an Emily, an Alicia, a Nobber, a Freddie. You need a mix of people to maximize to be able to fulfill all those different requirements that a really, really good finance team will provide you. Now, I'm going to wrap up now with what the actual answer is, to make sure that your team can be a business asset and not an overhead. So you want them to be contributing to the business and actually helping you to make more money. So these are my top tips. Okay, I've got 3 top tips for today on this. Firstly, automate. There's so much that you can now automate. Automate as much of the processing and the reporting as possible. This then frees your finance team to do the higher value added roles and more interesting parts of the role as well. So do try to automate as much as possible. And that needs to be looked at regularly because new software, new things are always being developed. So, you might have thought that you were cutting edge 5 years ago. I can guarantee you things have moved on since then, and there will be other things that you can potentially be putting into place in your business to save money, make things faster, make things perhaps more efficient, make things quicker, all sorts of different things. But automate those types of things first. Secondly, where you've got skill shortages, you may want to outsource or offshore. You may just go, actually, I just don't want to deal with the finance department. In-house, I don't know how to manage them. I'm going to outsource it entirely, which, great, come and have a conversation. But that's not right for everybody. But if you do have a look at which bits, you can outsource the whole thing, you can outsource parts of it. And especially there is a huge skill shortage in this country. And that's, again, why you really do need to appreciate the finance team that you've got, because it's getting a little bit easier to recruit in some areas. Audit, almost still impossible. But I heard from a very good recruiter this week that even in some of the offshore countries such as India, even there they're really suffering from skill shortage. So it's now starting to be a global skill shortage, not just a UK or Europe skill shortage. So do really look at, if you've got a finite resource, make sure that you're getting them to spend the time on the things that are really qualified for and are really going to benefit your business rather than just the processing, etc. So that's outsourcing, offshoring. The third thing, and I referred to this, I think it was about halfway through, but this is really key. This is how you get your team to really help you increase your profit. Involve your finance team in every part of the decision-making process. So include them in board meetings, include them in the senior management meetings, include them in the processing decisions and processes, including them in the budgeting and the planning. Include them in every part because they are integral. If they don't know about it, they can't help you. And these finance people, they may be quietly sitting in the corner, but they are often very clever people that can really help you. So make the most of them, utilize them, ask them, really do work with them. And trust me, if you've got a finance team that is working well with your sales team, working well with your operations, your procurement, your marketing, your warehouse team, if they're working well all across the board, if you've got those good communications, they're being treated well, that will help you to increase your bottom line. Absolutely. Okay, I hope that was useful for today. Please do feel free to contact me for any additional questions, any steer on what balance, because it depends on the size of your business, of what sort of balance you might want in your team. Very happy to have a conversation with you, or I can also direct you to some of our fab outsourced finance department team members who are really good at this and would be able to help you. But anyway, thank you very much for today. Hope you filed your personal tax returns. I'm sure you have. make sure you also pay them by next Tuesday. But thank you so much for your time. Business Boardcast as usual next Friday at 12:30. Please do join me. I will be up shortly of who the speakers are in February. There's a whole raft of them, which is really exciting. Just waiting to confirm which ones are on which days. That whole massive new exciting topics. But for now, cheerio. Thank you very much. I'll see you in February.